Welcome to the Pickup Podcast, the place where women pick each other up, dust each other off, and help each other to shine. This is a place of lifting, refreshing, and truth-telling. Our goal? To collect the broken pieces of our lives and create a beautiful mosaic that reflects light and hope to the world. So take a deep breath, sis, because you've just found 2 new friends for your journey. We just have one question for you. Are you ready to pick up where we last left off? Let's begin.
One of the big questions I'm sure families out here have is, what is the father's role in homeschool? What does that look like for you?
Yeah. So for us, it's interesting. When my kids were younger, I would use my husband as leverage. Right? The principal. I really would. Like, this needs to get done before your dad gets home, okay? That's all I got to tell you, buddy. And things will get done. You do what you got to do.
No shade, no judgment.
No shade. Just listen. If you got to use it, you got to use it. And that really worked well when they were younger. Now that some of the kids are getting older and going into college, I think he's become more of like a confidant for them. So one of the things that you do have to balance with homeschool is like mom versus teacher. Mm. And so we haven't talked about parenting styles on the podcast yet, but my parenting style tends to be filled with grace because my kids are with me so much, and they would just be completely over me if I was nitpicking every single thing that they did. So what's nice about as they get older is they can kind of go to Calvin, my husband, and be like, well, mommy said I have to do this, or she said I have to do that, but what do you think? And they use him as a sounding board. And at first that was like a little jarring to me because for our family, I owned the education. I owned that whole world in our family. And so it was a little tough for me at first, but now I realize that it's really great for them to be able to have that. He's almost kind of like a guidance counselor, I guess, if you want to give him a role. So that's Calvin's role for our family. And of course, if I still need some enforcement, he's there.
That's awesome. Yeah. Shout out to Calvin.
Shout out. You're pretty dope.
Yes.
What about Brock?
It's interesting. Our dynamic has evolved quite a bit. I owned most of it. I'm losing count. We kind of just do it. I guess the first 6 years or so, but the past 2 to 3 years, Brock has really stepped up. Shout out to Brock, my amazing husband. He stepped up a bit when I went back to work, full time. And so he's more hands on with them as far as the routines of the day. So I'm so grateful for him. When I was on bed rest, he really, I think that was kind of breaking him into it. Right. With Chloe, I was on bed rest a month at home and then a month in the hospital. And that, I think I see that time as that was the training ground for him to just get in, understand our daily routine. And since then, he rocks it now. He almost kind of directs them a little better than I do these days.
That's awesome.
And now with us being in the hybrid situation, we kind of just support and, the school lays out the curriculum and we support. But again, we try to infuse the talents, gifts, and all of those things, the dance, the music lessons, the Savion. He's incredible. He really is autonomous, at this point, probably because, I struggled with high risk pregnancies. So he's been self-directed for a long time, which is not every child, and that's okay. It's so important to know the difference. But he's teaching himself Japanese, how to read, how to write.
He's so good at it. Yeah. It's just mind-blowing.
And even with the girls, he's helping out right now with my girls, and he's so nurturing. I just love that homeschool really fosters the family and strengthening that. You said it so well. We don't realize how much time and how much influence the school system has on our kids. Yeah. Until we see things go wrong. And so for us, that was a big reason why we started. We wanted to have more influence. And especially when we see all that's going on, it's essential, especially with our faith. We want to make sure that they understand God wired them to learn. So whether we do curriculum or not, they're going to learn. And God made them fearfully, made them wonderfully, and he created them to do great things. And so we just want to set the table for that, for them to find success for them. There's no American dream. There's no standard to success.
Yeah.
And I'm excited that we get to help shape that for them.
So what you said is so important because I think if you homeschool, you are family centric. And family-centric is not the culture of the United States, right? True. We tend to be, as United States citizens, bent on like success, individualized success. So some of the things that happen when you homeschool, when you are family-centric, are really interesting. Like people will say, or they've said to me, well, your oldest is just like a third parent. And I'm like, full stop. No, she's not. She's a kid. Mm-hmm. But just because you see her taking agency and caring about her siblings, that doesn't mean that now she's elevated into this role. She's family focused, right? So she knows that if we all succeed, like we succeed together. Same thing with, any of my kids, we'll hear comments about, well, you guys only cheer for like in team events, you cheer for because she needs to know that her family is here supporting her. Of course, we're here supporting the whole entire team, but we're focused on her and we're focused on what's good for her, or we're focused on what's good for him, And so being family centric in the United States is very, very tricky. And so I think that's also one of the myths that, or one of the struggles that may surround homeschool is that you're seen as maybe, like separatists, or like, I don't know, what's a good word for it, that you don't really like want to blend into society well, or that you're you're antisocial, but it's just that you're focused in on your one particular goal and you're making sure that everybody is focused on that same thing. So for us, the 8 of us are focused on making sure the 8 of us succeed. And for you, the 5 of you guys are focused on making sure the 5 of you succeed. Absolutely. And it's actually a beautiful thing. And it's so wonderful to have kids that can like catch that vision, come alongside of it and be like, yeah, we're going to make sure that we cover each other and that we are able to do this together as a family. So I just thought what you said was so great. And it's really important to know there's just a difference when you homeschool in what your focus is. And for us, it's our family.
Yeah. And I would just say to mothers who might be apprehensive and you feel like I'm not equipped or called, God knows what your kids need. He's going to provide that, whether it's through you or through supplement. But I will say, as you were sharing that, I was reflecting on my family and how we travel, with my husband and my kids, are up late hours. Well, he's wired them. Our sleep patterns are different than the average person. Yeah. And so I don't have to have mom guilt because I appreciate that now because they can do that. They're able to stay with us out all night and still function. Yeah. Whereas if they were on this strict sleep schedule of I have to be in the bed at 7, I couldn't support my husband in the way that I need to. But my kids are musical. They need to be in that atmosphere. I was looking at Chloe just admiring the drummer, and just soaking it in, and she's playing behind the scenes, and Savion is behind a camera with Freddie. Yeah. How powerful, is that? So not only is our American culture not family centric, but I will dare to say the church is not always family centric. I think it's been a pet peeve of mine, a source of frustration that the family is pulled apart. There's women's ministry on this night and men's ministry on that night and kids and there's a different thing instead of bringing the family unit together. Yes. Now, some churches do it very well. The Orange curriculum, I think, is a great example. So many that I could throw out. I think it's super important even for the church to get back to God created the family. Yeah. And that's the unit. And out of that, then we enrich, but we need to bring it back instead of pulling apart and dividing our time. So you have church events and then you have sports events. And it's like, when do we come together and gel as a family apart from homeschool? I don't know how families do it when you work full time, your kids are in school, then you have all the youth groups and all the things. When do you have time to have intimacy as a family?
I have no clue. I don't know. And we're one of those families that runs, like we go in the evening, right? So the afternoon, like our afternoon meal, our morning, like usually 10 o'clock to about 1 o'clock, Bible study, eating together, all of that. That's our community time for the 8 of us to like be the 8 of us, even with Zora being in school now, she'll still come home from classes so she can have that time with us. I have no clue how people do it that have to get up and out of the house. And how do you find time? How do you know what's going on with one another? And I mean, if y'all have practical tips and tricks, please let us know, because I'm like, y'all must be really amazing, because if I have autonomy over the schedule of the majority of my children and I still find it difficult to find room to just breathe and just be. Right. And listen, I'm full on with you 100% when it comes to the church and doing that, because we take the family, we say, I want to use you for this gift, you for that gift, you for that gift. And we separate it and we pull it apart. And we don't say, hey, as a family unit, this is what you can do. I'm sure that you've had it also. You would bring your kids to CFNI and to worship and to class sometimes. And I would do the same thing. And we keep going back to CFNI because it's where we met each other. And it's like the foundation. It's where, we came together. But I remember people being like, you can't bring your kids to class. Like, we're on a Christian college campus. I'm like, I sure can. And here they are. And they're going to sit and they're going to learn. And they learned the presence of God and they learned about the Holy Spirit. And doing things together with your family is natural. Right. It's natural and it's beautiful and it's right and it's the way that it should be. It's the design. It's God's design. It's how things should be.
Yeah. And we're better together. Like you
really
said,
are.
We use one gift, but imagine if they're all working in unison, how much more effective we could be in the kingdom. In fact, I remember Savion I was studying missions at Christ for the Nations, and Savion was 3 years old, sitting in those classes. His nanny, who would, whenever I would, send him somewhere, she was Japanese. The two of them were Japanese. And so I have no doubt that that's part of why this thing rose up in him to start learning Japanese and writing Japanese. So what are our kids missing out on because we don't immerse them in those environments and bring them alongside and see how we handle conflict?
Yes.
See how my husband had to, navigate some difficult situations behind the scene at a concert. I love that my kids get to be with us. Then I have no guilt that I'm away and we're doing these things. And people ask, how do you do it all? I think because we're together, it doesn't feel like very much. Yeah. We're doing it together. We're running, but we're running together and we draw strength and inspiration from each other. Yeah.
Doing it together is really the key. You have to be linked up arm in arm and you have to have the same goal. You can get there different ways, right? Everyone can have their own little piece to play, but you have to get there together. And it's funny because you talked about Brock handling something backstage. One of the things that I sometimes maybe want to shoot myself in the foot for is I let my kids see like my best and my worst.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I'm like, so hey guys, for real, I should have not have talked to that lady that way, or I should not have responded that way, or here's a better way I could have handled it, because they learned from it and they see your humanity. And then if we want to talk about a generation falling away and a generation not, it's because there's a lack of transparency and there is some hypocrisy in what we do as adults. And so if I let my kids transparently see where my weaknesses are and where my strengths are, and I don't try to, you can ask my kid, I'm not like, I do not try to come across as being perfect anything. I'm like, well, I screwed that up. You know what I mean? If you do that, and if you let them see your humanity and that you still have your faith, right, humanity aside, then it just brings them into an authentic place where they can trust you. They can trust the thing that you're pouring into them. They can trust the God that you're showing them is the way, the truth, and the life. Do you know what I mean? And all of that really comes together. And that is what homeschooling is about. It's about the full circle moment. It's about all of it coming together. So if you're really trying to get into this thing, don't look at picking out curriculum first. Don't try to figure out who you are, what you're about, what your family centric moment is going to be, and then go from there. Because we're not all raising Rhodes scholars, right? Some of the most amazing people that we saw through COVID, supply chain. If we don't have people driving trucks, if we don't have people at Walmart, at Kroger, if we don't have nurses, if we don't have frontline, if we don't have, goodness, our realtor sold us our house at the end of the pandemic, if we don't have people that are willing to get out there and to do the work. So you don't have to be raising some scholar just to say that you're homeschooling. You have to be raising an authentic, complete human being who's willing to reflect upon and embrace all of their gifts and then give that back out into the world. That's all you have to be able to do.
Wasn't that a great episode, guys? I mean, we need to give these homeschool dads their props so much more often. Shout out to Calvin and Brock for holding it down. You know what to do. Like, listen, share, and subscribe. We don't want you to miss any of the magic. Hey, stay tuned because next week we're bringing you another installment in our How to Homeschool series. This is Krisette and Dominique, and we can't wait to pick up the conversation with you next time.